Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We'll be joined by Mr. Richard Blank. Richard is quite the fascinating individual. He's been the Chief Executive Officer for Costa Rica's call center since 2008. And, I don't say those words lightly. When he was 27 years old, he relocated to Costa Rica to train employees for one of the largest call centers in San Jose. And now he has trained and shared his knowledge with over 10,000 bilingual telemarketers. Richard Blank, welcome to the program.
So happy to be here, Shalom. I got some amazing stories to tell you and your amazing audience.
Fantastical. We're going to have to do it quickly because we're going to do this rapid fire in the interest of trying to educate entrepreneurs. And that's exactly what you are. And that's why I'm so excited to have you over here. So how is it that you pick up? I know you have a degree from University of Arizona. Where does that bring you to Costa Rica?
A 1 in a million opportunity. A good friend of mine asked me to come down for a couple months to teach English. And you sometimes shed a skin, and if you can get past your parents' guilt, you can live anywhere in the world. And it opened my eyes to a call center from not the C-level, from the agent's perspective, the art of speech, the conversion of the calls, people really making themselves more marketable, self-reliant, and self-confident. So I guess I gravitated towards it, packed up everything I had in the States, moved down here, and here we are 22 years later.
That's amazing. I love it. And like you said, there's, I'm sure, so many stories. But, this is a show really about teaching people, which I know you do a lot of. Essentially, I'd probably call you an educator at this point. But you have developed an entrepreneurial brand. And I want to start there and then actually talk about some of the lessons that you have shared as you've imparted your knowledge. So like I said, over 10,000 bilingual telemarketers. But on the entrepreneurship side, we know what it takes in the States, but what are some of the sort of ups and downs that you've had in your entrepreneurial life?
Impulse control, maturity. I don't really consider capital because anybody can get it and anybody can spend it. But in order for people to come to a place of work, they need to have their dignity. They got to feel some sort of job stability. And if you're planning on being a leader that's visual, it's better off not to do it through fear, because the agents, your employees, have the leverage. They can always quit. And so I always believe that by walking the rows, Shalom, and knowing someone's name, and besides just having an office environment and call center, which is very specific, I love a gamification culture. I always believed dessert first and recess was the most important class in school, because that's where you can play.
My kind of guy, always dessert first, absolutely. And you talk about games, I'm going to segue for a moment because I learned something fascinating about you. You have the largest collection of restored American pinball machines and antique jukeboxes in Central America. Is that part of your sort of your persona that you've created and culture?
I know about work-life balance. And one man's trash is another man's treasure. And growing up in the 70s and 80s, the arcades were the place to be, and the $5 had to last you all weekend. And so I knew that when I did have success and I was able to buy things, besides the necessities, I wanted to fill one of my dreams in life was to have my own arcade. And so I collect these beautiful machines. I'll drive a couple hours and pick something up, and I know the value. And half the fun is the restoration. You can buy the parts in the United States and have electricians fix it. But guess what, Shalom? These games are older than most of the agents working here. And they claim they played pinball virtual on the internet. But my friend, there's a lot of things that are better live than on the internet. And
I love it.
But the most important thing is they can hang out with me. They can release some stress. They can have some hand-eye coordination off the phone instead of having a cigarette and looking at their phone.
Well, let's talk about that. Again, I'm chatting with Richard Blank, the Chief Executive Officer for Costa Rica's call center since 2008. He relocated to Costa Rica to start training employees at the age of 27. And I know it's been a journey of twists and turns ever since. Twists and turns, no pun intended, with, of course, these pinball machines. But hey, Richard, I mean, I mentioned that I believe you're an educator. And that's really where I want to sort of, as we start to come to a close in our conversation, that's really where I want to talk about in our last few seconds about that education, that training. How have you been able to impart your knowledge from your own experiences and sort of share it in a different culture? Do you find that people are people, sort of one size fits all?
Absolutely. It's quite simple. When someone's bilingual, to me, it bears the mark of higher education. And then I put fear into perspective. Learning a second language is 10 times harder than any account I'm going to put them on. Since English is my first language, I'm able to extend to them certain genres or expressions that might be more applicable to the North American markets. They become more attuned. And then finally, I'm not going to compromise their ethics, values, and morals. We can look at the thesaurus, see some similes to expand their vocabulary so it's more diplomatic and strategic. So when they're on the phone, they're a lot more composed. So it makes it for a much better delivery, Shalom.
Absolutely. Richard, I want to have you on again, and I want to talk about so many of these different topics that we've only just scratched the surface on. But there's a lot I know that you have about you. If anybody searches Richard Blank and call centers, I know they'll find you. But where is the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I'm all over the internet, but maybe just buying a first-class plane ticket and flying down and visiting me. But I do have a very large Facebook fan page, about 104,000 local Costa Rican Ticos. It will give your audience a pulse on the business process outsourcing in Central America. And also, when this goes live, you're going to have a lot of new fans.
I love it. Richard Blank, thank you so much for sharing your passion, your expertise, and your good culture of fun. I can't wait to jump on that plane and come out and visit you. Richard Blank, thanks so much for joining us. You've been listening to Get Down to Business. We've got to squeeze in a quick break here on the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We will be right back.